We are live. Okay,
Hi,
so
everyone.
I'm just going to do a real quick check on YouTube to make sure that we are truly live for all of you watching on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah, and we are.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to mute that. Okay, aloha, everyone. Welcome to the autumn 2022 virtual meetup for Sanity.io. My name is Cap. I do developer relations at Sanity, and this is my co-host.
And I'm Lo, and I also do developer relations at Sanity.
Yeah, we work together, and it's great. So this is an autumn themed meetup, but it's not very autumny in Las Vegas where I live. Do leaves change where you live, Lo?
In Raleigh, yes, they are. We get a little bit of like yellows and reds. It's nice, but it
Nice.
doesn't get like cold per se.
Okay. Yeah, here it's just like I don't know.
The same as it ever
Nothing's
was.
changed. Yeah. You can look up into the mountains and like see a little bit of snow. And we
Is
do
there
have a ski
like
resort. You'd be surprised, but Vegas has a ski resort.
slightly more tumbleweeds or less
Yeah,
tumbleweeds?
less
Oh,
tumbleweeds during the fall. Yeah.
okay.
But we do have our beverages, our autumn beverages. So I have hot chocolate. Hot chocolate is like my thing right now, and I have it in a moon mug. So fun fact about my mug: one of our engineers at Sanity, Alex, his wife actually handmade this, and yeah. Lo, tell us about
Wow.
your mug.
It's so cool. I love that moon mug. So this
Thanks.
is my panda mug. Um, Also, fun story about this mug. It's Panda Mug 2.0 because the first one broke and I was really sad about it. So I searched all over the place and I had to place a winning bid on eBay to get this. So this
Really?
is say hello everyone to Panda 2.0.
Panda 2.0.
And I am just having your regular old coffee.
Right on. So if you're joining us, you can find the Slack or the chat because you'll see that it's disabled in YouTube. It should be. Yeah. So you will find the chat in our Slack community, and that is at slack.sanity.io. Let me put up the banner. Slack.sanity.io, and you can find us in hashtag meetup. There are some people there that are already saying hello and where they are joining us from. So I'm joining from Las Vegas, Nevada. Lo, you are joining us from
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Nice. So we are on opposite ends of the United States. We have some people from Norway, Canada. So yeah, let us know where you're joining in from, and let us know your favorite fall beverage. Lo, let's do. I know I have blurred on, but let's do a little cheers to start
Okay.
this meetup.
I'm gonna get it wrong. Okay. Is this
Yours is gonna disappear. Yeah, go this way. Yeah. I don't know if it's
Okay. It just looks like I'm invisible.
darn green screens.
It's there in spirit. Okay.
Yeah, it's there.
Excellent.
I felt it. So yeah, welcome everyone. Find us in the chat. Let us know where you're joining in from and your favorite autumn beverage of choice. There's hot apple cider. There's hot toddies. There's hot chocolate, pumpkin spice latte,
Yeah.
just coffee,
All the teas.
all the teas. But yeah, anyway. Oh, Knut's is hot chocolate as well. That is mine right now. I'm just all about hot
Yes.
chocolate.
Really doing it.
So yeah, find us in the Meetup channel in our Slack community and come say hi and throw around some gifs and emojis because it's fun.
Yeah. We'll have a good time in the chat. And as you come into the channel, I just want to direct your attention to the community code of conduct. It's bookmarked in the hashtag meetup channel. This will just give you some expectations for communication and behavior in our community. It's super important to us that our community remains an inclusive and welcoming environment for everyone. So as you come in, just take a look at that community code of conduct.
Yes, for sure. And if you see anything, let us know. We want to make sure everyone feels safe. All right, so I'm going to cover the agenda for the day real quick. So first, we're going to hear from Chris, who will be speaking on SvelteKit and integrating the new Sanity Studio into SvelteKit. And then our second speaker is doing the same thing, talking about putting the new Sanity Studio into their Svelte app. And so it's like just a coincidence, a Svelte themed, autumn themed meetup.
Yes.
But that is going to be Félix and Shelby, and they will be speaking on a new like redesign that they did for a developer's portfolio, which is really awesome. And then we will have our internal speaker, Snorre, who is a full stack engineer at Sanity, who will speak on Sanity V3 plugins. So we hear that we will be publishing a brand new plugin in less time it takes you to make a good cup of coffee. So I don't know how quickly you can do that, but
Yeah.
Snorre claims that he can make a plugin quicker than you can make a good cup of coffee. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to
we'll see.
get clarification on the coffee apparatus he
Yeah.
means.
So yeah. Oh, and if you're not familiar with V3, what I've been talking about, the studio is getting a major upgrade. It's currently in developer preview. Lo will be sharing a link to the chat. It's going to it's a blog post covering what to expect. But we're in developer preview right now. And we have an event next month that I will tell you about in a second. But yeah, that is that link.
Excellent. So, and at the end of every talk, of course, we will have about a 5-minute Q&A session. For each Q&A, we'll usually do probably about 2 to 3 questions. If you have more questions past that, you can always reach out to the speakers on their Twitter or in the Sanity community Slack. We'll always drop their links in at the end of their talk.
Yeah. So if you have questions, definitely put them in the chat. Now, next month, so this is our official last community meetup of the year.
Aww.
So the next one, I know, the next one won't be until 2023, but we do have an event next month that is pretty big. So I'm going to hide this banner real quick and I'm going to share my slide. So we are having next month the Sanity Product Day. It is happening on December 8th, and then you see the different times for the different time zones. So like I said earlier, the Sanity Studio is coming out with a new version. This event is going to be dedicated to that. So we'll showcase what is happening. It will be packed with demos. We'll hear a keynote from Magnus, our CEO. But yeah, this is happening December 8th. So just a couple more weeks. And yeah, there's a lot going on. Knut and I are actually going to be hosting a full developer hour. So definitely hang out, come watch the demos, get your questions ready. Lo has already shared the link. You're on top of it. Yeah, there's the link for you to go register. Definitely go register. And we will see you on December 8th for Sanity Product Day.
Yes. All
right. So without further ado, let's bring on our first speaker. So we have Chris. Chris is going to be our first speaker. And this, like I said, is going to be a talk on SvelteKit and embedding the studio into that. Let me bring Chris on stage.
Hey, what's
Chris.
up, guys?
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Hi. All right. So where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you guys from the Netherlands with an empty cup. I drank it all.
You drank it all. When we did our pre-speaker stuff, there was coffee in there. So
yes.
Yeah. The green room, it's really good.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, right on. Is that your favorite autumn beverage of choice?
Coffee? Yeah, I just stick with regular black coffee. You know, I'm a simple guy.
All right.
Cool. Well, remember everyone, if you have any questions for Chris during his talk, please put it in the Slack community #meetup channel. And we will get those questions answered at the end of the meetup or at the end of the talk. So we'll do a quick Q&A at the end. But besides that, the stage is yours, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I would love to talk about integrating Sanity Studio V3 into SvelteKit. So essentially want to get them to play nicely. And it took me a while to figure this out and to really develop a workflow that I liked. So I want to talk about that. a little bit about me. Most people know me as the guy who co-founded Heat, which is like a community for music producers. So what we do is we teach music producers how to sell music online. We have several courses for that. I also created carpops.com, which is a WordPress plugin for e-commerce store owners. I've been developing since 2017. Kind of started with no code because I was doing marketing, and you have like tracking scripts and whatnot. So sometimes I had to figure out how to use JavaScript, and I had no idea. So I started, hiring people on, Upwork and stuff like that to do stuff for me. It was really expensive, and at some point I just started tinkering, and I kind of fell in love with, I guess, like tinkering, and I got stuck in the whole development rabbit hole. I picked up PHP, and that's when I started building carpops.com. And I was doing like basic CSS and JavaScript and all of that stuff. And then eventually I picked up a little bit of TypeScript, and I started creating like web apps in 2019. It's a fun story actually, because it started with me doing NFTs and the whole Web3 thing. And I was like, why not create an app that tracks your NFT portfolio? So I kind of started liking the idea, and I couldn't get it out of my head. So I was like, let's create a web app that, does that thing for me and sort of scratch my own itch. So I started looking into, I knew about React, and I sort of knew about Vue. So I started looking into them. And me coming from PHP, I had no idea. So I looked into React, and it felt so damn daunting to me. It felt like a total foreign language, even with the little bit of JavaScript that I knew. So I started looking at Vue, and it made much more sense coming from the PHP world, where you'll have your script tag at the top and then your HTML at the bottom. And then I sort of started creating with it. And I spent like 6 months developing this web app that a couple people used, and I eventually I shut it down like a year or so ago, because it just it didn't work out. But I also didn't really feel like the whole Web3 thing was like the path for me to pursue. But what I later realized that those 6 months that I wasted were just a really just a course on development, and and how I need to go about building web apps. It was like this huge side project for me. So that's how I got really into creating web apps. And now I'm just like super pumped to create things. And I stumble upon things such as Sanity. So after Vue, I was like, okay, what's next? And I discovered Svelte. And man, I love Svelte. It just feels like home for me, because like React feels a bit boilerplatey to me. I can write React, it's fine. And Vue still kind of feels boilerplatey to me. And you need to install separate state management packages such as Vuex or Péault, or however you pronounce that. And then with Svelte, there's like built-in state management, and I can sort of tinker and do that all within that same framework. So I really started to dig into Svelte and started building tiny projects with it. And then one of the projects that rolled out of it was like this project called NeoTokyo.fm, which is like this online radio station, because I wanted to have music during when I was developing, and then I wanted to sort of be ambient, but I also wanted to be more like more up tempo, like cyberpunk, chill wave, whatever the whole genre is. Personally, I'm really into hip hop and R&B, but when I'm developing, I like to listen to sort of like this genre. It just helps me focus. So I created this and then use Sanity in the backend. So this is like built on top of the YouTube embed API. So basically, you can search for YouTube. You can search for YouTube videos and then add them to a specific station, and then you can switch stations within the app and then listen to the music. And when that video in the backend ends, or like behind the front end ends, it will just start the new track and so on. It's sort of like an endless loop, but this really helps me focus. And it got some traction, and it had a couple thousand page views within the first week, and people really liked it. I also use Sanity for my own business, because we sell these music samples online, and this is like a standard Shopify theme, just an out-of-the-box theme. But I wanted to create a way for people to sort of preview what's inside the product, and it's audio. So this kind of made more sense to me than create like hundreds of SoundCloud embeds and sort of put them on the page. I mean, having one at the top is fine to preview the whole thing, but like have each separate audio track, that there wasn't anything in the Shopify app store that I could use. So I decided to, why not create one section that has a specific ID and just mount a Svelte app just onto that section, and then use Sanity in the to sort of get the tracks for that specific Shopify slug. And I'm just using the official Sanity plugin that's in the Shopify App Store that sort of syncs your products. And then, someone who works for me, they just come in and they add the tracks in Sanity, and it just works perfect. And it's really this tiny section, but it's really important for our e-commerce business to work well. And I created many more projects with Sanity, but I guess like it's too much to dive in here right now. However, I feel like there's still a lot of work that needs to be done for the Svelte ecosystem within Sanity specifically. I do feel like Sanity V3 is really going to change the game, because the boilerplate just decreased a lot. It's going to be independent of of the kind of like the compiler that you use. So I feel like there's a lot that we can do here, and with this talk, I wanted to quickly dive into my thoughts and how I sort of figured this out for my projects. So I'm going to exit this real quick, and I kind of wrote it all in a blog post, because I feel like that sort of makes it easier to sort of reference this later on as well. So first thing that was on my list and that I really wanted to get done and that I got curious about is, how can I embed the new studio inside my SvelteKit app? And I guess like the first thing that I bumped into, because when I read the official announcement, I was like, oh, cool. So it's bundle agnostic, and you can use it in any framework, and all you need to do is kind of import this whole Skypack thing. And I started messing around with it, and I was like, I can't get it to work. And it's throwing me an error. So I was doing this whole, maybe I can, create a Svelte component that sort of renders a React component. And I didn't really, thought about creating I didn't really thought about checking out the package and see if there's an actual function inside of the V3 dev preview that I can use to render it. So I started, I went down this whole rabbit hole for nothing, because I sort of thought about it in way too hard, but eventually I figured it out, and I got it to work. So I'll open up my VS Code here. And really, this was like ridiculously simple, but I just wanted to show it for the guys and girls and whoever are using, SvelteKit. All really takes is to mount the studio is to create a route folder that's called studio, or whatever you feel like you want to have there. And then you need to create another folder that's a catch-all folder. So basically everything that will be /studio/ whatever will be cached, so that the studio can catch up with that specific route and show you the content that's needed there. So all I did was I created my Sanity config as per the new beta docs. So this holds all of my Sanity config essentially. And as you can see, it's pretty small. I feel like it's already such a difference compared with the other with the V2. This isn't really a big project or anything like that, but I'll really takes is, this kind of like config, which I really like, to do everything in here. And I keep all of my Sanity config inside this like library folder, and it just like, it's all in here. I really like that. So the next thing I did is I created a component called Sanity Studio, which I can open here. And I'm importing the render studio function and the create config from Sanity. And the version that I have installed right now is the dev preview 22. And what we need to do is we need to declare a variable, and this can be anything really, that we bind to a div. And when the component mounts, we can check whether that div exists, and then we can mount Sanity to it. And it looks like this. So I created a little demo app here. And if I go to /studio, for some reason, I don't have it added to my thingy. Let's try that again. All right, yeah, so there it is. And as you can see, it mounts just fine. I can access any post that I want, and everything works as expected. And for some reason, this took me a long time to figure out, because I guess like the official announcement from the blog post kind of sort of catch me off guard. I don't know if it was this post, but yeah, at some point I figured it out, and it's actually really easy. So I created this blog post for anyone who really wants to, follow along and embed this into their SvelteKit app as well. I think there's a lot of like reasons why you should too. If you're running a small project or doing anything client related, there's like no need for a mono repo or a turbo repo. You can just have it all inside of this app and sort of manage everything within this same code base. And I really like that workflow personally. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to, and this repo is available, by the way. You can just go to my website, chrisjayden.com, and you can pick it up right here. And the next thing I wanted to dive into is live content previews. And this actually took me a fair bit to figure out. I kind of explained it here at the start. You can have your changes in real time in your SvelteKit app. So the reason why it took me a bit to figure this out is that Sanity has a Next.js toolkit, which is like built for Next.js. It's not SvelteKit stuff, obviously. So I had to sort of go through this code base to figure out how to get the whole live preview thing to work. And I guess like in this talk, I sort of wanted to dive into how I got this to work. And of course, you can reread this whole thing. It's actually not that hard to implement, but it takes some time to set up. You can of course clone the repo and you can play with it. It's also, you can play with this demo online as well. It should be online too. I can drop it in the chat later on. Let me see. Yeah, so the first challenge I ran into was that SvelteKit, unlike Next.js, doesn't have like a preview mode. And a preview mode in Next.js is really a way for, I guess, like CMSs to, have a way to preview content. And I feel like it has to do, in Next.js at least, it has to do with cookies and a bunch of other stuff that they're doing in like the Next.js code base, like their internal code. And I started looking for something like this in SvelteKit, but I couldn't really, find it. Not many people are talking about this because I feel like, the SvelteKit ecosystem is still, it's still sort of small. The whole React ecosystem is just so much bigger. And yeah, the second challenge was that Sanity conveniently provides a Next.js toolkit, but I couldn't really find anything for SvelteKit. So what we need to do is we need to create the preview mode. And really what this is like, let me grab the example. When you click on preview right here, it should look up that same post on the live side or in development on your local host. It doesn't really matter, but it needs to look up that post and then sort of injects the draft of that post inside the app. So if I click preview right here, you can see it pops up the preview just like that, and I can open the side by side, head over to the editor, and I can change this to whatever, and it it updates on the fly, and you can sort of make changes in real time before hitting publish, and that's really what we want. And this whole Next.js toolkit makes that super convenient to do. So what I had to do is I had to create a preview mode where you can sort of set a specific preview cookie, and then the app knows like, hey, this person is previewing. Let's inject some other stuff that's coming from the post that we're previewing right now. And I'm actually going to dive into the code base again, and I'm going to sort of walk you through how this works, because explaining all the code in this talk is going to take too much time. I would suggest to sort of read through the blog post and try it out, or clone the repo and publish it on Vercel. So what happens is we have this API route with a preview endpoint, and basically what happens inside of Sanity, when you click on the preview panel, it will open up this route, and it will check if it has a specific secret. If the secrets don't match, we throw an error, and then we continue and we check if the post in this case is, if the type in this case is a post, and we will fetch that specific post. If we get a response, we can use that slug to redirect to the preview in this case. So after that, if that person is previewing, we'll set a cookie, and that sort of hints at our app like, hey, this person is previewing right now. And then inside of our posts, we have a sort of a server, and this runs before the post page gets mounted. So if we have our app right here, and I click on any of these posts, the server will first run, get the data, and then show it to the client. So what we do here is we can check if we have the preview mode cookie, and we then get a specific Sanity client to fetch our content, and that client sort of depends on whether we are previewing right now. So if we are previewing, then we can fetch with more credentials. We can sort of fetch the draft, and if we're not, we'll just fetch the normal post. So this runs before the page gets sent to the client, and then on the client we sort of have this hook, which is modeled after the Next.js toolkit that Sanity built, but it's basically sort of turned into a SvelteKit store that sort of does the same functionality. But basically, this takes care of handling all the data that sort of comes in, and it checks whether it's in preview mode or not. And this is actually really cool because you can do things like this bar at the top. You can pull the current user that's logged into Sanity. You can pull that with an API call, and then you can just greet them and say like, hey, what's up? This page is a draft, and you can have them exit, because we also have a route that's called exit preview, and all this is doing is it will just clear the preview cookie again. This is actually very similar to the new Next.js app that was released by Sanity with the new Sanity Studio V3. I sort of model it to my liking. So right now, the hook that takes care of previewing, I called it the Create Preview Subscription Store. I believe inside the Next.js package, this is called this hook is called create preview subscription hook. I sort of took that approach and made it at Svelte store. So right now this is inside of this code base, but if there's enough demand from like the Sanity community and people who are using Svelte, then we can look at making this a Svelte toolkit for Sanity, because I feel like it would make things a lot easier, because there's quite a lot going on here. And again, I explained this in this whole post. It took a lot of time to write this all down. So if you're interested and you're using SvelteKit, I would suggest to go through this post and sort of get an idea of how this whole preview and content works, because it unlocked a lot for my team, that they're able to preview the content before they hit publish. Because I didn't use the preview side-by-side preview before, and people started clicking publish when just to sort of look at the changes, but they didn't realize it would start a new build. It would post something on social media, and all of that stuff, and it was just chaos. So this sort of change and setup really helped me to take things to the next level. So yeah, that was really my my talk on getting Sanity to play really nice with SvelteKit. I wish I had more time to really dive into the code, because I love to dive into the nitty-gritty of things, but I feel like that's for another time. And yeah, you can check out chrisjayden.com. I have the repo up here as well, so you can check it out. And yeah, until next time.
Awesome. That was great stuff.
That was fantastic.
That was a lot.
I found the blog post and I shared it in the Slack channel, so everyone has that. We've been following along. But Knut says something at the very end that I thought was very good to like pass on to you. But this is super valuable for anyone who builds with this stack. You seem to do a lot of work that wasn't there. So I was wondering, so there seemed to be a lot of like roadblocks that you hit, that you figured out and you just kind of like worked your way around. What was the hardest one in your opinion? And did you find others online that were building with this stack that you could like get support from, or was it all just you?
Well, I guess like I'm not really the guy who posts questions on Stack Overflow. I'm the guy who stays up until 4 a.m. to figure something out. But I'm also the type of guy who thinks about certain problems like way too hard. And in reality, it's much simpler than that. At the start of this talk, I talked about how I got stuck embedding the new studio, like the V3, inside my Svelte app, because I kind of thought way too hard about the whole problem, and it was actually much simpler than that. All it took was one function, but I didn't really care to take a look at whether that function exists. So I got stuck there. I got stuck at like figuring out the whole preview mode in Next.js, because I looked at the Next.js internals and I was like, my head, I cannot really, look at all this code and make sense of what Next.js is doing behind the scenes with the whole preview mode. But then I figured out like it's just setting a cookie. So I was like, all right, I can do this. And that got me more convinced. And then I sort of ended up on this. But during this whole thing, like this whole search online, I couldn't really find a lot of people doing the same thing. So I guess like it makes sense to sort of publish this online, and hopefully it helps other people too.
Yeah, it's really, really awesome that you wrote it all down, because a lot of people, well, some people, they just, figure it out and they're, I got my repo up and I got my project running and that's all good. But for you to like write it out in a blog post, that's going to help a lot of people. We'll definitely put it, because this will all live on YouTube. We'll put the link to that blog post as a description so that people can find it easily. There's a lot of love in the chat, so definitely go look at the chat for this Svelte and Sanity stuff that you've done. We're very impressed. There are no other questions from me or from none that I see here. Just a lot of like, this is really awesome. You did great work. Lo, do you have anything else to share?
No,
ask?
just
No,
that
I was
that was
just
fantastic.
awesome. Yeah, I was just checking at the comments inside of Slack and see what people had to say.
Yeah.
Felicia said, "Whoa, big up for his work on Sanity." Well, I really appreciate it. Yeah, these comments are heartfelt. I like this community a lot.
Yeah, you did a
Right on.
fantastic job, and this is your first talk, right?
Yeah, I guess like this is my first dev talk ever.
You
So,
rocked
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah,
Cool. Well, thank you, Chris. That was an amazing talk, amazing demo. And you all can find Chris on Twitter. Lo will be sharing that handle in the chat, but you can all find Chris there. And if you have more questions, but you will find the video uploaded very soon and that blog post as well if you missed it. But yeah, thank you so much, Chris, and we will see you around.
thank you for having me. All right,
Yeah.
cheers.
Bye.
All right. Amazing stuff. Did you finish your autumn beverage during that talk, or is it still going?
No, I still have a little bit left to get me through.
Mine's gone. All right, so that's one talk on Svelte. The next talk is also on Svelte. There's a lot of Svelte going on, and it's good stuff. We're very excited for it. But yeah, I will let Lo introduce the next group of speakers.
Yes, so let's get into this. Another speaker for our Sveltetastic Day. I can't stop saying Sveltetastic. Like ever
Sveltetastic.
since
I like it.
I know I'm so like I love a pun. But anyway, next up we have Félix and Shelby, and they're gonna show us how they built and redesigned a portfolio using the Sanity Studio and SvelteKit. So let's welcome Félix and Shelby to the stage.
Hi.
Hi, y'all.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having us, Cap and Low.
Great. How are
Thanks
you
for being-
doing?
Good. Yeah, it was a very interesting talk actually, because I was literally trying to figure this out as well. So
Well, that was
Having
right
the
on
same
time.
yeah, I'm gonna use it. So thanks, Chris.
So, Félix and Shelby, tell us where you're joining us from.
We are in Toulouse in France,
In the south of France.
Yeah. Where it's nice as well and sunny.
Yeah. We have more of a winter here, and the leaves are very beautiful right now.
Yes, peak foliage.
Very autumnal.
I love it. But we're super excited for your talk. And remember, everyone, if you have any questions, just go ahead and stick them in the chat, and we'll get those answered immediately after Félix and Shelby's talk. All right? Are y'all ready?
Awesome.
Yeah.
The stage is yours.
Amazing.
Great. So we'll be talking about redesigning a front-end developer portfolio using SvelteKit and Sanity, and it's my portfolio. So,
Essentially.
so I'm Shelby. I'm a front-end developer.
And I'm Félix, and I'm usually more of a art director and digital designer, but I also have some background in front end just by doing it.
And backend.
Also a bit.
Yeah. We are actually a couple,
Yeah.
so we don't work together professionally
all the time,
but we do work together on our own personal projects a lot. So we have like our, we have a few things going on, always creating new things. But yeah,
today is more about talking about how we changed your site into a more minimal, I guess.
Minimal yet bold redesign. Yeah. So this is what you're seeing is a screenshot of my old site. So just for some context. And
it was more colorful and more
playful.
So we wanted to go away from that a little bit, and be more
classy and
radical, I guess. And that was the stack.
That was the old stack that we used for my site.
Which is using, it was on Next before, and using Prismic, which is two things that we're not really a fan of since moving to SvelteKit and Sanity. And it was running on Versal, which we still like for many reasons.
So lately, my preference has been to use SvelteKit quite a lot lately. It's just because it's like much lighter, and I find it really simple to code, having no virtual DOM and better performances, reactivity, closer to native JavaScript, and yeah, it's just really smooth and easy to use.
And as for Sanity, obviously, it's just like, I feel a bit hard to get into at the beginning, but when you kind of dig in a little bit, you find that it's very easy to use and very customizable. So I don't think I would go back, to be honest. It's just easy to build anything you want for the needs of each project. And it has a nice pricing as well, which is not tremendously expensive like other ones. I like that too.
And then using Motion One over Frame Emotion just as a port of concepts of Frame Emotion, but for any platform, not just React, and Turbo Repo for fast and cached monorepo, and Versal still, because we really love Versal.
And I feel the mix between SvelteKit and Versal since the past
obviously
months has been pretty good.
Really cool to see the growth.
So about the design, because it's a very designy front-end developer website, we kind of iterated and explored different layouts and colors and image placement, image combination. So it was quite some back and forth trying on design. But we ended up finding a nice balance for like the website, and finding cool interactions and animations, which is the base of the website. So the best thing is to probably see it. So that's how it looks like. So it runs an animation at the beginning and reveals somehow the list of the projects.
So for the introduction part, I really wanted to play with the large title font, and then using like the different depths and the layers as the images for my projects. So they're actually the works. And then when you click one, you scroll through, and it just has some photos and a video screencast of the sites. So in case people don't want to leave and visit the sites, they can just have a preview. Yeah, so that's the intro of my projects. And then it has this nice little animation to the about section. I like to have I like portfolios to be pretty simple and like one page-ish. So I wanted it to be like very smooth with all the content.
So yeah, it's essentially a very simple website.
Yeah.
It's not using crazy animations or WebGL or crazy content relations or anything. It's just a very, how would you say, like
impactful yet minimal. Yeah, so as you can see, as you would imagine, you just kind of assume the data from the site is mostly what's in the homepage, and then the projects for the works, they're also what the data consists of in Sanity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the website. So since I'm very into like organizing design and making it, how would you say, like the most design driven and I don't know, like organized in general, like find a meaning into it. I use the component based design system, and more likely atomic design system from Brad Frost, which I really like since a few years. And it's usually for design, but we applied that for the dev as well, because it's very linked how I design and how we dev together.
Yeah, especially because we collaborate so closely and
Yeah.
get to kind of like actually understand what each other are doing, it's really, really helpful to code in that way, I feel.
So if people don't know about it, it's usually based on atoms, molecules in organisms. So atoms are little elements that compose a molecule, like a set of molecules, and then these molecules compose a set of organisms. So in our case,
so for example, the little moon I have in my about section, it would be an atom, and then the projects, so the works with the title and the image would be a molecule, and then the contact section of my page, my portfolio, is a organism.
So it's like a combination of many elements, and for the code part, it's like essentially just organized in different folders. So it makes it very easy to read and organize. It's just nice.
It's like going through the design.
It's not just one folder with all the components. It's a mess otherwise. So here we don't have many, but yeah, it's nice. And of course we use Sanity V3 because I was stuck on the V2 for a while, and I was like, I heard of a rebuilding sometimes, and I jumped into the dev 20 or 22. It was a bit buggy at the beginning, but then I stuck on the version 20, but then saw the release candidates, which was very stable, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna run into that. And then I kind of just, how would you say, like, upgraded the studios that we've made before into the new code base, which changed a little bit for the good because it's easier and has less code. So yeah, it's a very simple studio here with like a project. It's like a project post type, some kind of like component, and essentially just the content part, and they're all linked together with references. Each project has some tabs and events. We can just add medias and information. It's very simple. It's just some fields essentially. And as for the content, and it's a very cool feature of Sanity, is that
you can so for my works, sometimes especially when you're a dev, you sometimes have projects that are finished but not published or not public. So I'll make projects and like complete them but not have them published on Sanity yet. So it's just a nice additional way to organize things in your portfolio.
And order it as well.
Yeah, and have a manual order is also nice because I just put my favorites first. I don't.
Yeah, and otherwise you have to filter by name, A to Z, or by date, and it's never the good thing. So when you update it, it's a mess. But anyway, so that's a good way. So you can reference a project and just manage it with an array and a sort, and that's it. Very simple. And there's also a twist.
There's also a hidden page in my website for just a links page that I wanted to make pretty much for Instagram, because I have multiple projects and things I want to share, not just have my portfolio link. So I was able to make pretty mostly like a link tree style page, but manage my own data using Sanity.
And so we can completely design it the way we want, and add images and more stuff. So yeah, not that we don't like with Linktree, but it's cool also to make it.
Just do it yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to also show you a little bit how it works on the studio. So we customize it a tiny bit with the logo, but I will dig into more customization later because this is not really important. But essentially, we can create projects. They have tabs, which is the native now with the new V3, which is very cool. I was using a plugin before, which was good, but it was kind of like ordering the content in a certain way that you had to query a specific grok array. So it was not the best, but now it's better because it's integrated. So we can essentially put a name, a slug, a date, the thumbnail, change the thumbnail ratio if we want, which is cool. Add all the medias, which is essentially a photo or a screenshot or a video. And here it's just a file, which is costing a lot of bandwidth, but we'll find a way. And as for the details, just like some tags and some credits and a link if the project has a link. And that's pretty much it. And for the homepage, then we have this reference override, so we can move it and select the ones we want, which is very cool. And pretty much fields of text. There's nothing crazy here. We just put some line breaks in the code here, so we can manage the styling a bit better. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's nothing crazy here, just a bit of SEO fields as well. So we can choose the share image we want and the title of the page and stuff. And as for the links page, it's essentially the same thing, an image and some links with some subtitles and links and image if we want. So yeah, very customizable, which is very cool. It's not every headless image that can do that. So we love it.
And yeah, so for integrating Sanity into SvelteKit, it's pretty simple. Just involves setting up a client and storing it in environment variables, and then creating a reusable API load function for server pages to avoid redundancy and putting it on other pages.
Oops. So yeah, on the it is more on the backend side, which I usually take care of. Then we just use the fetch Sanity API function we just did before, which is just a shorthand, and it's just a grok query essentially, which is great for just filtering the fields we need and not everything. We can even create like for the ratio here. Get the ratio, the aspect ratio of the image from Sanity itself and not calculate it from the sizes, which is cool. I don't think GraphQL can do that. And then as for using the data on the page with Svelte, it's very simple. It's just the page prop data. We can do then anything we want. Just pass it to the components. Yeah, that's it. There's not much else to say. It's very simple, and the link with Sanity and Svelte is like almost like a dream. Like I wish it was like that with all the CMS and frameworks. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks for listening.
A simple site for a simple talk.
Beautiful slides and beautiful website.
Yes, it's so beautiful. So we had one question in the Meetup channel, but you answered it on the way. It was about how you were doing the animations. But I had a question. You have a very distinct aesthetic. So who and what are your design influences? Because when I look at a lot of your projects, I see like really like old French films like Jean-Luc Godard and stuff, like the typeface. So I was just curious who your influences are.
That's a good question, but I essentially come from the more traditional graphic design font area, so not the web. So that's probably why like I learned how to not make fonts and create fonts, but how to use them properly in the layouts and stuff. So I would say it's more from that, from like an art school essentially. But yeah, like all the graphic movements from since the 20s to the 80s and stuff like that. I couldn't tell them all, but yeah.
it's always fun to see like what it was and what it is. So I liked that you showed like what it used to look like, which when you look at that, it's beautiful. Like it's still like an amazingly designed website. It looks
Yeah.
amazing, but it's amazing the different ways you can take design. And yeah, so they're totally different, but they're both like amazing. And I love the bold colors and like the huge font in the new one. Like it's really fun. The animations are amazing and they're smooth, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Well,
nice.
it's funny because when you're around designers a lot, you kind of I feel like they're a bit competitive with their portfolios, and it's like, how can I bring that? How can I bring that into mine without I just wanted to make it nice, and like not all developer portfolios are like as design focused, but that's really my niche. So I wanted to show that in my portfolio. So it's really cool to be able to bring that in.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned, how simple the site is, but I think one of the things that like made it simple, right, is because you had this sort of organization of like a design aesthetic, and you made a design component system within that, and that combined with like structured content really created like an awesome framework for you to like really like visualize or realize what you were thinking about in your mind, and that is super cool.
Yeah, it made it easy to build, to be honest. Like it was something we just did on the side for like a week or two, and yeah, once you had a clear vision, it was really simple to build because of that.
And also the fact that from the design we know which kind of fields are going to be on Sanity or not, and if it's editable or not. It's like it's kind of the process as well. So it's just from the design we know pretty much what's going to be the end. So yeah, very seamless.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. That was a fantastic talk. You can find Félix and Shelby on Twitter. I think Cap's going to drop your Twitter handles in the chat. If you have any more questions for them, you can reach out to them on Twitter. Also, they're around in the community, so you can reach out to them there.
We love the Sanity community. So we've always had a lot of support from you guys. So it's really nice to be included.
Thank you. Feel great to have you. You're fantastic.
Thank you. Well, thanks for proposing the talk.
Yeah, thanks.
That was nice.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for your talk. There's a lot of love in that channel. Definitely go check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Amazing talk, amazing site.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank y'all. Bye. Bye. All right, so we're moving right along. Those are two great community talks. It was so wonderful. And with that, we want to give a special thanks and shout out to our three community speakers. Those talks were fantastic. So to show our gratitude and our appreciation, we want to make sure that Chris and Félix and Shelby get Sanity hoodies, which is really great. Cap and I have one. Very comfy. I like it a lot.
So comfy. I love it.
I feel like I always say how comfy they are when I'm not wearing it.
I know. Like it's amazing. I never take it off.
But again, thank you all, and look out for those links in your email, or we'll either DM you so that you can get your hoodie delivered to you. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we have our internal Sanity employee talk. This is going to be with Snorre, and let's bring him on stage.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
So where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Oslo, Norway.
Nice. And it's really dark right now. Right?
Yeah, it is kind of dark, and it's gonna get darker until it starts snowing, I guess. Then maybe it will light up for a while.
Nice. Are the leaves changing colors? Or has that already happened?
Well, it's more or less gone now. It's just a bleak winter to look forward to.
So, okay. Well, do you have a favorite autumn beverage of choice?
Well, I don't know. Any kind of beer could make my day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
It could even be warm.
Right on. Well, you are speaking on V3 stuff as well. plugins in V3. So
in a way, we're talking about V3 stuff, but we're also going to go into, I mean, after seeing these beautiful sites, this is going to be a bit of a contrast, but I mean, sometimes you've got to talk about the nitty-gritty stuff as well. So I'm from the ecosystem teams at Sanity. We're sort of looking to improve developer experience when integrating Sanity with different frameworks and stuff. And I mean, we've seen a lot of that today. So what I'm going to talk about today, previous meetups and so on, we've been showing some new features on the V3 Studio stuff. And I mean, that's all well and good, but we also, when you create something like a plugin, you might want to share it with the world, and that's more or less what I'm going to go into.
Excellent.
So are you really going to be able to create a plugin in less than quicker than someone can make copy?
I have some cheats in my back pocket in case,
right.
you know, the install commands take a while, but let's see.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't be rushed. I will try not to rush this, so please don't hold me to
Yes. Oh,
oversell.
Yeah.
Well, we will give you the stage, and thank you so much for speaking on all this. And again, let me just show the banner real quick. The Slack community is where we are chatting in the #Meetup channel. So the stage is yours.
All right.
All right.
So let's assume you have you're fiddling around with the V3 stuff. You're having a good time. So you're thinking about looking to create a plugin. So here I have a studio. It's based on the Next.js starter kit. And I'm just moved some of the pages into a different section and been playing around a little bit with some WebGL stuff just for fun. So let's say you have this little schema where you have made a little custom component. In this case, there's a slider here, so you can change the values of my graphics shaders here to you know, get the better feel for how it's working. If you want to do some quick edits. This is also, incidentally, I won't go into it because this is not actually about making the plugin code in and of itself. It's everything else. But just hinting some of the stuff that you have in V3 now. This is an array. It has a lot of different configuration for each item. But the most important thing, the stuff you're editing a lot, that's inlined in the items now. So this is just a small little custom component. And then I also have this custom component here, which I thought I'd use as an example, which will be the basis for a plugin. So let's say I have multiple studios and I want to have this slider component in all of them, right? So I want to have something that I can ship everywhere because I don't want to have to copy paste this code every time. So starting with that, you actually have to deal with the world we're living in now, and that's the world of npm packages. We need a repository. We need to host this on GitHub or somewhere, and then we have to publish it to npm. Then we have to make sure that this package we have made actually works in all of the different JavaScript runtimes that are out there now. You have the Next.js stuff, you have Dino, you have the old school CommonJS stuff, ESM. There are so many buzzwords and so much stuff going on. And personally, I find it really daunting and really hard to make a package for npm from scratch. So what we've been trying to do is to make for V3, we've tried to make what we're calling the Sanity plugin kit, which is supposed to remove a lot of the boilerplate that goes into this stuff. So with that said, let's get to it. We'll start on the command line here. So the first thing we want to do is just to show you what we will be using. It's this package here, or this command line interface, the Sanity plugin kit, which is a way to initialize plugin, upgrade V2 plugins to V3, and also to inject opinionated config to remove a lot of boilerplate to make things go faster. So I guess with that said, please don't start making your coffees, and so I can get a little bit of a head start, but let's see here. So the first command we will be running here is this one, the npx sanity plugin kit, which is our package. This is just a node command runner, and we want to use the init command and then the name of the plugin we want to make. In this case, I'll call it the silly slider demo. So let's hit this one, and it's asked me, do you want to install this new version that I released since last time I tested it? Okay, let's do it. Okay. For this plugin, I want to be myself. Here's my email. Let's call it Sanity plugin silly slider demo. And then which license do we want to use? Let's use the MIT license. And this will be for demo purposes only, because we may or may not end up publishing this to NPM, so let's not have people installing this nilly-willy. We'll get back to the repository URL, but then we hit enter here, and boom, boom, boom. Which package manager do you prefer? In this case, I want to use NPM. And I mean, don't hold the npm install command against me, but here we go. So what it's actually doing now, it has created a bunch of files, as you can see. It made a package.json, a license file, a README, a bunch of boilerplate files. In this case, we're opinionated, giving you prettier and ESLint config that we sort of prefer ourselves. You could add additional command line parameters to the config here if you wanted to opt out of some of these. I might take a look at the help page for the command as well, just to show you what it looks like. Always fun looking at installing. But let's see. There we go. So let's now initialize. Let's see here. I have a couple of silly folders here, but cd silly slider demo. So inside this folder, let's initialize our Git repository. Then we add all of the files. And this is what it looks like. Now we have essentially a bunch of configuration files. In a modern JavaScript project, there is a lot of fluff. The most important thing here to pay attention to is that we have our package.json file. This is where most of the boilerplate is hidden. It has added a bunch of plugins that will just make developer life easier. It is opinionated, so you could always opt out of these if you wanted to. There is some stuff that makes sure that our plugins will show a friendly warning if you install it in a studio of version 2, because version 3 plugins don't work in the second or studio version 2. And it also makes sure to use the latest and greatest dependency versions for all of these. And then there's this bit, which essentially is taking care of all of the nitty-gritty details of how you're actually building a modern JavaScript NPM package that will be publishable and usable in a multiple of settings. I won't go into the details of this, but just know that we're trying to have your best intentions at heart here. And then there is a couple of extra steps here. We have a pre-build script. There is some pre-publish only stuff. And all of this is here to make sure that when you build, if I do npm run build, it should make sure that if this completes with a success, then we at least have something that should work. You know, this is all here to just make sure that we don't publish stuff that's broken to npm. Now, having done all that, I think we should just test this out of the box. The plugin kit has a quick guide set up here, which will go through all of what we're talking about here. So the next step now is actually to run this run link watch command. So it's a little bit fiddly if you have one package and want to test it in another studio. So we're also trying to automate and make it as smooth as possible to do that. So let's now, we have our package. It doesn't really do anything. I'll show you actually the code which we will be testing. And that's in the source folder. And it's just this index file. So this is all just documentation. And you can see it imports the define plugin config from Sanity. And then it defines the absolutely simplest plugin that's possible in Sanity at the moment. And that's a plugin that only has a name and it doesn't do anything. But as a side effect of being initialized, it will do a console log. So that's what we will be looking for. So let's just now install this plugin into our studio. And once we see that it's all hooked up correctly, we will move the slider code into this plugin. So let's go. So we go. There is some stuff going on. It spams a lot of stuff, but over and over again, it tries to tell you if your studio is using yarn, copy this command. If you're using npm, use this command. Since we're using npm in this case, I will copy this command. I will go to my playground studio. I will, in another shell, I will paste this. And now it will install the package locally. So we're not publishing to npm, but we have like a local repository set up that makes it so that I can now import my plugin here, which is the default name. We see this one, Sanity plugin silly slider demo. I'll add that to my plugin list in the studio, which is now here. And then we'll go back to our playground studio, open up the command line, and here we will see hello from Sanity. This was tiny. Let me see if I can increase the font size here on this one. Yeah. So here we can see, I'll just close the 3D preview. Here it is. And just to show you now that this is running now in the command line here in a watch mode. And that would mean that if I edited the file, let me just open a tool that I'm a little bit more comfortable with than doing a edit on from the command line. There is a silly project, and we'll do the silly slider project instead. I'm an old school Java guy, so that's why I'm using IntelliJ. Please don't sue me. So here we have our plugin. It's running here, and if we now go into the source command line tool, I'll just change the console log note. Change it. If I save here now, this should update, and it should immediately update in the studio. So now you can actually run code changes, and you can have quite a fast reload. I must just be clear that since we have moved the code or have the code in a different repository, there is a little bit of overhead where it has to build the files and then push it to the studio, but at least you have live reload and you can really work quickly like this. So with all that said, let's try to now move the code that I had from the playground studio. It doesn't really matter what it does, it's just all in here. I'll copy paste that, go to my little slider thing, I'll override everything in here. And now, of course, the README is not up to date, but what we're having here, we're exporting number range input, which we're already using here. But in the existing studio, the plugin is imported from the local path. But let's now instead import this from our package that we hopefully updated. It did not. Let's just see if my sorry. Let's see if we can nudge this to work. Something happened. Now at least we got a little bit of a compiler here. It says that my plugin doesn't exist. That's right, because we removed that. Now we're, instead of exporting my plugin, which is the default plugin name from Plugin Kit, we are now hopefully still not exporting the thing. Let's give it a little bit of a kick. Maybe it was overwhelmed my copy pasting so much code at once. Just let's see. Oh yeah, I did not necessarily test this, did I? Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So now it's been built, it's been pushed to the local repository, it's imported into the studio, and we can see that it's still working. There's a slider here, and just to let's make a code change in the slider demo to make sure that it is as we want to. We can go down to some of this stuff. Let's make this, wrap this in a card. And now, just like it's let's do padding. Add some padding and just a border. And if everything goes according to plan, then this should have worked right now. But it's not, which is great, to be honest. Yeah, we can see it added a border. Yeah, so it seems just this next setup is actually lingering the errors. So as you can see here in the studio now, it has added a border around the slider. Okay, so this is how you can set and test, have your code in another repository, and you can have it live reload in your studio. So that's all well and good. Now, that's cool and all, but at this point, we actually need to publish it to NPM. To do that, we need some help, because we could always just publish this from a local development machine, but that's not necessarily a good idea, because it works on my machine. It is not always the best way to go about things. So instead, let's make a workflow for a plugin. In this case, we will use the inject command from Sanity plugin kit. In this case, we're injecting a preset, the semantic version workflow. So let's go. In this case, I think I actually forgot to commit everything. So let's just see what this did in my prepared delete me repository, because it's exactly the same. This has a couple of commits, but what this command now did, it added a lot of new things. And in this case, it added a GitHub workflow. It added some pre-commit hooks. It added some helper functions and even more opinionated stuff. And this is all to make sure that we can have a workflow. So if you commit this code after injecting, push that to GitHub, then you will end up with a workflow that looks exactly like this. And this will work in such a way that every time you push code, it will build it and will tell you if it's failed or was okay. And then you can also go into the workflow here and choose to do a release. When you click here, we can choose to run or not to run tests in the project. And once you hit run workflow, it will go through a lot of steps. So here I've done one example where I'm skipping the tests, and what it will be doing then, since it will mostly be installing plugins, but it will build the whole package. If you're using TypeScript, you have extra safety. It will type check everything. It will build your artifacts, verify that it's following typical Sanity plugin conventions. If you want to, it will run all of the tests if you have any. And in the end, it will do an automated release, which will figure out the next version based on your commit messages and publish that directly to NPM. So just before the meetup started here, I did that. I changed just a little bit of a thing in a plugin. I pushed the change, and this version was automatically published to NPM. I might be rushing this bit a little bit, but there's also a lot of stuff that goes into this. And what we're trying to do here is make this as easy as possible to get an automated release pipeline that you can use wherever you want. And the place to look into this is this main YAML file. Everything should be very carefully commented. So every line should have some sort of reference to the GitHub documentation or why the line is there, because there is a lot of stuff going on, but it's also really nice that it's there because it takes care of a lot of things. If you want to learn more about the details on what this thing is doing, then we have documented there in the preset for the semantic workflow stuff. Here's how you run the commands, and a line of the functionality, the things that it's opting in for you or stuff it's taking care of, and then a couple of things you have to take care of for it to work. So with that said, I think I could take any questions if there are any.
Awesome stuff. The chat is saying you are the hero we needed. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that, you know, like a lot of us aren't thinking about. We're just using it, and so it's amazing the work that was put in.
So I realized I sort of tripped myself up there with the copy pasting of code. I'm a little bit unsure what happened, but just to reiterate, so this semantic release preset, it's kind of opinionated because I would call enterprise bloat. But be sure that we have added, we're using this for all of the plugins that we have ported to V3 this so far. I think it's 25 now. We're using this exact setup. We're running this command in every repository on the ecosystem team. We're dogfooding this as it were. So we really try to make sure that this is helping us do more quicker. So essentially, my workflow now for porting plugins is actually just injecting a bunch of V3 configuration, fixing the code that's V2-like to make it V3-like, and that's it. And then you just hit publish, and it's out there.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. So how many Sanity plugins have you created, like you yourself?
Oh, no, let's not. This is definitely a team effort, and I feel like, I mean, I haven't actually. So there is so much great stuff in V2. I mean, as much as we're hyping V3 and everything, V2 is still a fantastic product, and
yeah,
we really want to make sure that at least as many of the most important plugins that we ourselves are maintaining, and hopefully the community feels strongly about, are ready for the V3 launch when it goes to general availability. So that's essentially what we've been doing, making sure that we have feature parity on the stuff that matters. So do chime in on. There is a GitHub discussions thread on the plugin. So we really would like to hear if there's anything major that's missing now. And of course, there is so much great plugin stuff for V2, and we definitely haven't been able to do all of it, but we are trying to do the most important ones.
Yeah. Well, we do have a couple questions from the community. Cody wants more Sanity plugin silly demos. So the silly, we all liked that.
Yeah.
But Martin was wondering, what is the plugin you're most excited to build with V3 outside of work?
Well, for me, it's sort of hinted here in, I really am excited about just making plugins for arrays. And there is so much stuff, using Sanity as like an expert tool for various things. I find that Sanity, it's so easy to make a schema that can control something. So having, stuff like this, a slider, I really often, where you make small adjustments, it's handy to have a slider or some sort of, interactive stuff that makes the editing experience a lot better. So it's all the small stuff. And the fact that we made it so easy now to, hopefully, to initialize and, publish a plugin, hopefully that should spur some initiatives in the community as well. So it's much easier to experiment and make plugins. And I feel like it's the configuration API you have defined. So if you have used V3 Studio at all, you'll find that the define config API is almost identical to the define plugin API. So if you configure your studio, you basically have made your first plugin. So you can just ship it as a plugin if you wanted to, which is great.
Excellent. And so the last question, can you ask what parts of the studio can you make a plugin for?
I mean, from an API point of view, I mean, now there is so many places. One of the great things about the V3 API, it's really expanding the horizon on what's configurable in the studio, and it also shows the way. First of all, it's all TypeScript now, so use your IDE to explore the API and find those, crazy places where you can add extensions. There's a studio components now. You can change your nav bar, you can change your logo, you can change multiple components in the studio already, and I wouldn't be surprised if more will come in the future. I mean, the new components API is just ridiculous. I mean, some of the stuff that was reams of code, I mean, lines and lines of code in V2, that's in V3 now, it's just a couple of lines. And you have these props, render item, render input, render field form, really encourage people to explore those because they're super, super powerful.
Awesome. And one last question that I have, actually, do you have any tips or best practices that you would recommend of when deciding when to make a plugin and when not to make a plugin?
I don't know if you saw this, but personally now, I don't write define config anymore. I just make plugins. Because the great thing, let me share the screen again, if we have time. Let's see, where did the button go? Here it is. I'll try to, because actually that was the first thing I changed when starting a studio, where we're told, or it's very natural to start building your schema in the config and building everything in line. But what very quickly happens is you have a lot of if statements after each other. You have a lot of mixed concerns. So I actually encourage you to, if you have let's go to the studio. So here's my studio config. So just note that, okay, the project ID, dataset, and title. Okay, schemas, but the rest is just plugins. So even the production URL, which opens the live the URL for the current document, I just made a little plugin for it because you see here's the plugin, and if I just X this out and paste it in here, now it's in config. So the only thing that's the difference here is that this one says define config, this one says define plugin, and it has a name, a distinct name. And what's so great about this is you could have multiple plugins that, because all of the plugins have this nice little syntax where you can get the previous state. So you could build multiple plugins that work on the same APIs, but in slightly different ways, and they compose automatically. You don't have to have like if this or that, then go this direction. You just let the plugin do what it does. And so the same thing goes with the now I moved it out to a plugin, but let's move. If we go to the silly slider demo example here and just look at what the plugin here, that's essentially just a very small define plugin that says that. Okay, so let's just take this example. For the form input component, if it's a numbers input and it has an option that says range, then we want to use the new range input. Otherwise, just do whatever you do usually. And then we could have another plugin that also works on numbers input, but checks for some other option, and they would combine seamlessly. So that's really, really cool, I think. So just make plugins. I mean, don't even think about it, because once you have made it into a plugin, okay, so the live update wasn't on this demo day, wasn't the best example, but I mean, you can just, once it's in a defined plugin state, it's movable to another place.
Right. Excellent. I think that's all the questions we have.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Snorre. It's very helpful to like see what's going on behind the scenes, but and thank you to all like the community members who make plugins and like anyone who makes a plugin. It's great work and we appreciate it. But
Yes.
thank you, Snorre. And if you want to find Snorre and the rest of the Sanity team, we are bye.
Bye, Snorre.
You can find him in the Slack community at slack.sanity.io. But yeah, definitely go say hi, ask questions. We're there for you. Cool. Well, that is the end of our meetup. We wanted to thank everyone for joining our last community meetup of the year, but not our last event. Remember, like I said, let me share my screen again. We have the Sanity Product Day, which is December 8th. There are the times. So I'm Pacific, so it starts at 9 a.m. for me. Low, it starts at noon for you. But yeah, so Low has put the link in the chat. Definitely go register. Everything that you saw today, you're going to hear even more from the team that built it. You're going to see a lot of demos, behind the scenes, how to use it, all that kind of good stuff. And then we will have a full developer hour dedicated to, questions and more demos. But we would definitely love to see you all there. So definitely register for that.
Yes, it's going to be a fun day.
Mm-hmm.
So last but not least, we're hiring for a bunch of roles. So do go and check out our careers page. Maybe you'll see something that interests you or someone you know. You can come and be a saniteer with us. Shout out to Peter from support.
Yeah. Right on. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We will see you next month at Sanity Product Day. Don't forget to register and RSVP. Thank you for joining us today. There's a lot of awesome demos, awesome websites that we got to see. And thank you to our speakers for putting in all the work that they did into their talks. A lot of work goes into those talks, and we appreciate it very much. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you all around.
Bye. See y'all.